Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to
Morning,
another
good
edition of
morning.
Morning.
Morning Money Conversations. Hope you're all well. How are we doing this morning?
Energetic.
Fantastic.
Did you guys want to introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them a little bit about yourself and your backgrounds and
Yeah,
why
go
we
ahead.
do these morning money conversations. You want to start, Stefan?
Yeah, sure. My name is Stef McMillan. I've been a mortgage professional for over 8 years. Tack on the time I've been um, surrounded myself in my dad's office as well. So I have a pretty wealthy amount of experience in the mortgage and real estate industry. Um, the reason we do this is to simply educate and enable individuals who want to build their wealth and transfer it to their families ultimately. A little bit myself. I like, I'm a big enthusiast of music. Um, I like to, you know, try different cuisines with my fiance, Pam, and spend time with my family and friends.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Andrew?
Yeah, my name is Andrew Stewart. I'm a financial advisor with a focus on estate planning and insurance planning and protection for families and small business owners and professionals. Father of two. I have a lovely partner, so I'm the only guy in the family, so pray for me. But I enjoy spending time with the family, making sure that everybody in my circle, as far as my clients and my friends, are able to, hear from me at least once a week. I think relationships are important for what we do. Stefan and Ray, and we know that the connections that we make with our clients and learning about their families, they become extended families at times. So I just really enjoy people and making sure that the people in our community can have the type of financial advice and expertise that come from people like Steph, Ray, and myself.
All right, thanks, Andrew. I'm Raymond McMillan. I guess you realize that I'm Stefan's dad. Um, I have been in the business since 1994, started out as a financial advisor, um, then got into the mortgage brokering business in 1999. Stefan has subsequently inherited that business from me, or I actually, it was a transition. That was part of the master plan. And that's part of our competition today about the wealth blueprint, where you transfer your business to the next generation. Uh, yeah, but back to what I do. So I've been doing mortgages for about probably 25 plus years. I've helped a lot of clients, friends and family buy real estate, invest in real estate, and monetize real estate, not only in Canada, but in parts of the Caribbean um, and now in Florida. A few years ago, I transitioned into Florida. I spent a lot of time in Jacksonville, where I discovered this whole new market, new opportunity. Um, I've mentored many young professionals. I've partnered with many people in the past to deliver content to our audience. The focus is education. And today we want to talk to you about the wealth blueprint. And I guess for each of us, wealth is something totally different. And as we transition along our journey of life, wealth probably changes for many of us. But I want the audience to participate in what we're talking about today. Because I think it's an important conversation for everybody. You know, we look at what the pillars of wealth are, and I'm going to share my screen here so that you can see how we want to have our conversation flow today. Um, so anyway, gentlemen, enough about me. Let's start a conversation, right? So here you want to talk about the fundamentals of wealth building and what they include. So for many people, we start with saving, income protection, income earned or passive, business building, and estate planning. But we open the floor. We want a lot of questions from the audience. We want a lot of interaction from the audience. We want you to share with us what your idea of wealth is. But right, let's start the conversation. What does wealth mean to you guys? And what is your wealth building process?
Yeah,
And I'll go with Stefan.
go ahead, Stefan.
Okay. To me, wealth is it's the essence of time. As you probably all heard, time is money. So for me, the wealth building blueprint is getting time, and time can transfer into spending time with your family, your loved ones. And that's a time that's infinite. You can't take that back. And that's very important to me in the stage of my life, where, as I mentioned earlier, I have a fiance, so I'm having a wife soon and his children. So for me, the wealth building is to spend more time with children and my fiance, whether it be going to certain ballet shows or karate, and not be confined into working myself to the ground. And that to me is the ultimate truth of wealth. And hopefully today you can get that from our conversations, from myself, my dad, and Andrew, where we have different outlooks and perspectives, and even yourself, the audience, you may have a different perspective than what we're going to share today, but ultimately we're just providing the fundamentals of wealth building and how we see the blueprint, to earn that wealth. So that's my thoughts on that.
And I think the word wealth has become a loaded word used in a lot of different sectors. And wealth can be different for as many different people as you can ask that question. But I think the most common one is going to be boiled down to money. Like, everybody thinks of having that money either in their account, either in assets, or in some way, shape, or form, something that they can either hold on to or use. Well, wealth to me is, like Stefan kind of alluded to, a choice. The ability to live your life on your terms and have as little or as minimal stresses that come your way financially. So if you're able to maintain a comfortable lifestyle, pay your bills, pay your debts, have money left over, able to spend that time with family, go on vacation. To me, those options available to you are as wealth. You don't need to have $2 million, $5 million, $10 million in the bank. Some people want those things, but they come with stress. So for me, it's about the options that your life has and how comfortable you're able to make your living.
But what happens if that 2 million or 5 million or $10 or 10 million doesn't come with stress? I mean, there are some people who want to have large amounts of money for whatever reason, perhaps just to be able to donate large sums of money to their favorite charity, or just the fact that that accumulation of money, makes them feel secure. I do understand that for everyone, even incomes, what's a good income for one person may be a very meager income for another person. It's all about lifestyle, etc. But is it wrong to want to have a large amount of money?
Well, no, and here we go into the mindset thing of wealth. A lot of people have difficulty with their relationship with money and their mindset around that. And they think sometimes rich people are all evil. People with money either got it by scamming somebody or they didn't do anything to get it. Like, there's a lot of things that are portrayed in the world of what wealthy people act like and are and what they do with that money, and sometimes it's evil intention. So a lot of people shy away with wanting to be wealthy because of that mindset. But to me, money in this particular place is a multiplier. It's a multiplier of who you are and what you would do. And a lot of the times, I think people think individually and individualistic in regards to it's just about them, what they want to do with the money, who the money is for, how it's going to make them feel, instead of kind of looking at it as a community base and seeing what you can do with wealth to make the world a better place and to help people. So to me, not having it or having it, that's individual, up to that person. But yeah, I think it begins a lot of it with the mindset of how you want to build that wealth and what it means to you.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
you. What's your thoughts on that, Steph?
Yeah, you guys make some great points. Going to piggybacking off Andrew said, I think it does have to do with individualism. Everyone has a different sense of money. Um, but also you shouldn't um, kind of not lower your standards, but you should reach to the ceilings where you should have, a sum of money, maybe 1 million or 5 million in today's world, where you can have a comfortable security in place. I think for us, with money is an energy, right? So it's exchange of energy. It's a product, service, is exchange. Once we remove the emotional side of money, then we look at it as a tool now. And I come across many people that get very emotional about money. Even myself, when I was growing up, I spend, all my money on candy and it's all gone and I'm upset. But, that's the cost of the candy, right? It's not free. But, as we grow into adults now, we're making larger purchases with homes, cars, etc. And those emotional decisions can be very damaging and very long-term damage, and even to the next generation. So I think we all have sharing good points, but I think also removing the emotional side of looking at money can be very advantageous to wealth creation.
So, Steph, Ray, in referring back to the graphic here of the fundamentals and the blueprint, if somebody was to say to you, here's my situation, where should I start? What's the base that I could start at and thinking about and altering to change my wealth landscape?
I think the first thing is discipline. So yeah, these are the five fundamental steps you want to take, or the five things that will affect how you accumulate wealth. But the first thing is discipline, because everything you do in order to get better at it requires discipline and focus. Um, the next step is to creating wealth. I mean, the first to creating wealth is actually having a budget where you where you where you determine how you spend your money, and what you spend your money on. You know what I mean? Most people today just spend. They're not there's no budget, right?
Mhm.
And today I think it's even harder today. Like when I first came to Canada, there was no digital banking. So when you went to do groceries, you had to go to the supermarket, take out $100 cash, and go to Loblaws or No Frills or Food Basic or wherever you shop, to buy what you needed. So what happened there is that it allowed you to only buy what up to the limit of the cash in your pocket, wallet, or purse. Today, if you've got $300 in your account, $200 is to pay your cell phone bill and utilities, $100 for groceries. You go to the grocery store, most people will end up spending more than they plan to spend because there's all that impulsive buying. So what happens is something else gets left behind.
Or
So
they go on credit.
you're always behind the eight
Yeah.
ball. The next thing that people, I think, aren't doing today, and for me, is the pay yourself first rule. And that takes discipline. You know, um, before you pay anybody, most you get your paycheck and the first thing you do start paying bills. No, forget the bills. Let me take care of let me pay myself. I've put in 45 hours this week, 60 hours this week. What is my time? Let me pay myself first. So whether it's 10% or 5% or 15%, it becomes a habit. The next thing people have to stop doing, is, and I always tell Steph, and I use this term, let your money percolate in your account for a few days. Because most of us are living paycheck to paycheck or check to check, right? Your money hits your account and doesn't even spend 24 hours in your account, it's already gone out the window, right? So if you get a check or deposit on the first of the month, don't pay anybody till the fifth of the month. It gives you time to sit down, relax, get your head together, and then realize what is important to deal with right now what is not important. And once you develop those kind of habits, it's easier to start saving, um, looking at investing and other things. In my opinion, I mean, I can be way off, but that's what I think is very important in how you look at money.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like,
Yeah.
I could have, how I kind of broke it down to myself, and I just made some notes, is like the four financial levels of life. And typically what we see for the lowest level where some people are, is that they live beyond their means, like you said. So they're making 2,000, but they're spending 2,500.
Mhm.
Then the second level is they're just getting by. So you're basically able to make your money, make your money, pay your bills and your expenses, but that's all. There's nothing left over. Pretty much you're just living, you're not really thriving. And then the third is that person is able to able to pay their bills and expenses, has a little bit of surplus and able to save, but not really know what to do with it. It just kind of sits there, and then they end up spending it on frivolous things or having it sit there in an account and being devalued by inflation. And then the fourth level is, this is where I think everybody should be, or try to get to, is making their money, able to pay their bills and their debts, have that surplus, but then taking that surplus and investing, whether it be into your stocks, whether it be into insurance, whether it be into real estate, but having that money become a multiplier for you instead of just sitting there. But one thing that I always want to make sure that I point out is that the investments should be safe. They should be liquid. And and what's the third thing? They should be safe, liquid. I'm missing one. It'll come to me. But those are the pretty much how I look at it, is what the four levels of kind of your financial stages of what people can go through.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean,
That's-
I agree with you. What are your thoughts on that, Stefan?
I was gonna ask a question to both of you. Based on the tiers that Andrew shared with us, how many of people you come across fall into those tiers?
Um, well, I mean, you look at society, it's the 80-20 rule, right? That's how society is usually divided. So 80% of people that do basically the same thing. Then you have the 20%, and in the 20%, you've got the 10% who are probably higher income earners, and whether it's in the US or Canada. Then you got the 5%, then you got the 3-2-1, right? The 1% are the mega wealthy, or the billionaires, and those guys who, in the whole stratosphere.
Mhm.
But the 10 and the 5% are the ones who usually come out ahead of the game. And it's not also how much money you make. It comes back to discipline and budget. I mean, I've seen clients who make $60,000 a year, household income 120, and they've got savings and investments up to $750,000 of no debt, own a home, own a car, etc. I've seen people make $300,000 a year household income, and they have no savings, like zero money in the bank.
Yeah.
And they're using their home as a bank machine,
Yeah.
right? And one of our ones I shared, people who bought homes 20 years ago, and they have no equity in their home, or they have limited equity. They keep on using the equity up to maintain their lifestyle. The one thing I observed with a lot of home buyers is there was no proper planning. And I think I said this to the term budget, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that word should be emblazoned across the screen. You have to budget, right? A lot of first time
Why
home,
don't you think people budget?
because we live in a society of immediate gratification, right? It's immediate. And I said one of the challenges we have is that most of us haven't adjusted to the new world of digital banking.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just tap. You go outside, you don't have cash, and you can tap your card or your phone and get you walk past the hot dog stand. You didn't plan to buy a hot dog, but it's $10,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And you tap your phone.
I
So
think we
people
said
are
this.
continuous spending stuff that they didn't plan to spend. Like, so and Steph can tell you, I drive my car. I fill my tank once a week. right? So I drive my car to the gas tank, just go a quarter. And if I'm not going to fill my tank until I get to that level, I do it once a week, Thursdays only. I've been doing that for 30 years. I am not going to put gas in my car until I get to Thursday. So if my tank goes down to a quarter tank on Tuesday, then I am not driving anywhere unnecessarily until Thursday. It's discipline. It's a mindset. You get what I'm saying? Most people can't do that, right? So you're constantly doing things that you didn't plan to do with one of the world's scarcest resources, which is money, right?
And time.
Yeah,
I
because we trade in time for money.
Yeah, I like your example of the car because I do mine a little bit differently. I I put a dollar amount to it.
Yeah,
So I said it's $50
Mhm.
for the week or whatever it may be, and then that's my limit. So you can either, like you said, it all boils down to the discipline of what you can put on yourself and abide by it. And I find when I do budgets with clients is that we'll sit there, we'll itemize everything through, and that's either an estimate or an exact. And they may have the intentions of, staying within that budget, but it's still kind of a hard habit to live by, which I find most of my clients still have that with budgeting. They can have it on their spreadsheet, they can have it on a piece of paper, but what comes down to making that decision, like you said, at that moment in time, myself included, we fail a lot of times.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, is equivalent to, running a business. You have to have your gross, gross money you're making, the expenses, in a spreadsheet. And we work with a lot of individuals that are self-employed, and it's pretty shocking to see that they're kind of winging it. They don't really understand the ebbs and flows of their business or the expectations they have in their industry, especially in trucking. When fuel goes up, you have to consider that. Um, so it's interesting that how the business owners have that mindset of their business. And also, I'm pretty sure their personal life is even probably just as worse. They're not budgeting the groceries, the gas in their vehicles, the mortgage payments. They're not factoring those day-to-day expenses when something arises, where we're in this economy where, rates have gone up, inflation has gone up. But they haven't prepared themselves for that type of shift in the economy. And I'm not saying you should be an economist or anything like that. I think you should be very aware and inform yourself to what's going on, because preparation is key, and preparation can avoid certain mistakes in your life. And what we're sharing today is is kind of the blueprint. We keep saying the blueprint, of protecting, your assets, your income, for not yourself, but also your family as well. Because something I would share is that, um, you know, there are certain individuals that come into me and they're in mortgage arrears situation, and mortgage arrears haven't, it's not drastic yet. The percentage of mortgage arrears in Canada is very low, but it does occur and it does happen. And in the case of these clients, um, they did lose their job, and you can't expect, that's something you can't prepare for. That's unexpected. Um, but for them, you should have some type of savings, or something
An
that's an
emergency
emergency
fund.
fund. Yeah,
Yep.
there you go. Emergency fund to prepare for those situations, because that could happen. You can lose your job, especially if you're in, the person's in IT. So if you are following what's going on with the job losses in the IT industry, you can be prepared to lose your job. So it's just being aware of this quote unquote job security that you have, that you may potentially lose. Or someone who's self-employed, you have to be aware that there are slow months that you have to prepare for, and you have to brace for it. So again, it goes back to, again, the word budgeting that we're discussing today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said, Stefan, but a lot of times, there's much information out there today. How do you know how to filter it, right? And it comes back to the fact that I think more people today need to have an advisor who they can talk to become the filter for a lot of the information. Because I mean, when it comes to saving and investing, you got everything from a savings account and a fixed deposit to cryptocurrency,
Mhm.
right? And most people don't know what one is from the other, right? They can't define any of these things. So I think a lot of the fundamentals to well-being have to do with where do you get your information, who is giving it to you, and are they qualified to give it to you? The era of social media and online conversations has got everybody having a conversation. We're having a conversation right now. What equips us to have this conversation? Yeah, I've been in for 25 years, you for 8 years, Andrew for 15, 16 years. But we've seen a lot of different experiences in front of us. But we have to vet the information, which is I think is very important, and vet the people who give us the information. Um, and what are their lived experiences, because there's also a lot of cultural differences when it comes to money, right? There's a cultural relationship with money, even within certain communities. The way East Indians from India and parts of the Caribbean deal with money, and the way Americans deal with money and Europeans deal with money is very, very different, right? The idea of wealth is not the same thing, how they do it. And then what's also very important, when you mentioned the whole job loss thing, is the income asset protection. So many people focus on creating money, but what they don't do, or creating wealth, sorry, what they are doing is protecting what they're creating, right? You mentioned job loss. A lot of mortgage products have insurance against illness, and I want to say job loss also. If you lose your job, they pay your mortgage
Yeah,
for 6 months. Even credit card, I think, offer that benefit.
yeah, they
But
do.
most
Yeah.
people don't have those features. So you lose your job. If you're in a profession and you qualify, you probably find another job in 3 to 6 months. But in those 3 to 6 months, if you don't have the necessary income asset protection in place, you can find yourself so far behind that you're never going to get out of that hole unless your income increases significantly going forward. So I think there's much to this conversation. I don't think the 45 minutes that we've given it is going to do it justice. This needs a part 1, 2, 3, and 4 probably. But I'll let Andrew share what his perspective is on what we've been talking about so far.
Yeah, so coming down to the income and asset protection, which is kind of my whole world, is I'm not pretty much telling you if you want to transfer a risk to an insurance company, there's probably a product or a company that's able to take on that risk for you. The issue is that do people find value in paying that premium to transfer that risk, whether it be job loss, whether it be death, whether it be sickness, whether it be an injury. There's usually a product that could either make you whole or hold you afloat until that time frame has passed. So in regards to the blueprint, we've covered budgeting. I think earning obviously is a non-negotiable. Going into that income and asset protection is a non-negotiable to me, because I never understood where if I'm going through a budget with somebody and they lose their job, the first thing to go is either their life insurance, either their disability insurance, or whatever insurance that they have in place. But they'll do whatever they can to keep that car insurance. Why is the car insurance the one that cannot go? Because they find value in using that car to go to wherever they need to go. So it always, to me, boils down to how much and how sticky that value is for that particular individual in regards to that protection of that asset. We always say your biggest asset is your ability to earn, but that's the least protected out of all of them, right? So that's where I go with that. And then I just want to go to that third bullet point, the income. How are we earning that income? Salary? Is it self-employment? Is it passive? Is it through profit of a business? I think that's the next level that when it comes to wealth building, people need to focus on after you get through the budgeting and making sure that you're living within your means and you have the protections in place that's important to you. But what are the advantages of earning an income a certain way over another way and having multiple streams of income? That to me, I think is where you really start to hit a stride of feeling comfortable in your financial position when you have those multiple streams of income and earning it in different tax efficient ways. What's your thoughts, Ray?
Yeah, that's very important to me. Like I was never one who was fond of part-time jobs because I saw the part-time job as a tax liability, right? If you've got a job where you're making $80,000 a year, you're in a pretty high tax bracket, whether you're in the US or Canada. You take a part-time job now where you've given up your leisure time to earn extra money, 5 or 10 hours a week. You're pushing yourself into a higher marginal tax rate most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And now nurses are a little different. Healthcare workers are a bit different because they work on a different schedule. So some of them only work 25 hours and they work 25 hours here. But if you have a full-time job where you're working 40 hours a week, and then you find yourself having to work an extra part-time job, I find most of the time that the tax implications of that second job doesn't warrant the time you're giving up, right? So what's the solution? In my opinion, the solution is to try and find something that generates income under either a company or through some sort of investment vehicle. To become a member of an investment club, you know, rent part of your home if possible, because now you can now, if you, when you sit with your accountant, you can now, work around how to make some of that income tax deductible. Because starting a small consulting business based on your profession. So if you work in IT and you have a job, then work as an independent IT consultant. You set up your own company. There's many things you can do to make your income tax efficient. But yes, I mean, as we look at us who live in these larger cities, the cost of living in them is extremely high. You live in, Toronto, New York, Miami, these large cities. Your housing is expensive, your food is expensive. So for many people, you've got to look at an additional source of income. It's probably easier for two income earning households to survive. The challenge is in some communities, many of the households are only single income households. So, with the two income household now, you got all these tax credits, which is something people already take advantage of and they don't really understand. And it goes back to my earlier comment. You've got to sit with the professionals and get the necessary advice, right? You've got to sit down with somebody. So your whole team has to be working in sync. Your insurance advisor, your investment advisor, your mortgage advisor, and your accountant. So that when you sit down with these individuals, along with you show them your budget and what your household income is and where you plan to go, you got a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year plan. Everything is working together as a well-oiled machine. But I think, figuring out how to make the most of the income and having the discipline, right, to keep to that budget, stay focused is what is going to get us today to the next level.
What was yours, Stefan?
Yeah, since we're talking about passive income, I have to shoot in the reverse mortgage because, if you've been following our conversations, that's kind of the catalyst of what I've been discussing. And I work largely with the aging population. And the aging population, when you look closely to it, their income has, they're in a fixed income. There might be pensioners, retired. They don't have a lot of savings, I find, as well, limited savings. I actually saw a video recently. This was in the US, this elderly white couple. One guy, the husband is in his late 70s. The wife is probably late 60s, but he had to go, he's still working. He's been working for over like 50 years and he has to work to pay his bills. And he grew up in a farm, so he grew up very rural, and he didn't grow up in the city. And he didn't know about a retirement plan. So it goes beyond just culture and your ethnic background. You find a lot of people have no idea where to start. So going back to the reverse mortgage, it utilizes your equity in your property to take out cash free money, and you can use it as supplement income, passive income, to support yourself. You can use it to support yourself, remodel your home to make it more senior friendly. You can use it to invest. As you know, we mentioned investment vehicles in this conversation. It's not too late to invest. You should build your future, because that investment can be, transferred to the next generation if you want to. So that's another method, again, to create passive income through real estate. Many of us still own homes, and they have a very small mortgage balance, and that they have all this built up equity, yet they're house rich and cash poor. So that could be a tool to utilize passive income, where you don't have to go back to work if you don't want to. I know some seniors like working because they like being in social environments, and that boosts their health and wellness. But if it's not necessary for you to make a living, then it could be a tool for you to consider, a home equity release, to live comfortably in your home and not stress about paying your next bill or something occurs. And the recent floodings happened in the GTA. Actually had 2 incidents where clients not resulted to the flooding, but they had flooding in their basement, flooding in the roof, and they have no money to pay for it. They had to get mortgage financing to do it. And these people, and one of them is fairly elderly too. So you have to be prepared for unexpected situations. And that goes back to, the second point, the asset protection and the savings as well, to weather any type of storm that comes at you.
Great points. Great points.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging for a lot of folks today. I mean, the cost of living has increased significantly in the last 10 years. You know, we've seen interest rates increase, and that's the other thing that has caught a lot of
Ray, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to quickly open it up to the people in the group, the participants, to see if they have any questions or anything that they wanted to add in regards to anything that either of us have mentioned, or have a question themselves.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, if you have a question, please put in the chat. We had a couple of comments in the chat, just basically reiterating what we've been talking about. Thanks, Dr. White, for your contribution. We do appreciate the comments. But if you've got a question for us, you can either put it in the chat, or you can ask the question. You have to turn your camera on. Just pop your hand up and just ask the question, and let us hear you. We thank you for taking the time this morning for spending with us. I know you've been doing a million other things. We're just about 5 minutes from 11 o'clock. So we don't have much time. We don't want to take advantage of your 45 minutes. There's a question here in the chat here from one of our listeners. And the question is, how important is risk tolerance when it comes to planning? That's an interesting question. I think risk tolerance changes as your level of understanding changes. I know that might be the unpopular opinion. I don't know what the opinion of my 2 colleagues is. But what's your opinion of that, guys? Risk tolerance.
We had that conversation, I think, just earlier in regards to how comfortable are you with risk? And I think it's a huge, huge component to how people go into and what they're thinking about of what they're planning for. You can plan as small or as medium or as large as you want, but it's always going to be in line with what kind of risk you can tolerate. For me, I'm comfortable with taking on certain risks in my investments because, like you said, level of understanding is greater in there. But my planning and my risk tolerance for, say, investment properties are very, very low because my understanding and even though I know about it and understand the benefits, it's still a low risk tolerance for me. So I think for me, or for if I was advising somebody, is that pick somewhere. You're either going to educate yourself to increase that knowledge, or pick something that you're comfortable with and become very, very proficient in it in regards to how you want to plan and execute those things.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with both what you guys were saying. And I totally agree with Andrew. I think you have to pick one of the kind of the types of ways you want to build your wealth. And I find if you're doing too many different things, if you're into real estate, stocks, crypto, you're kind of spreading yourself thin, and you're not really mastering the craft in one asset. And I think you should take the time to learn inside out how to build that wealth, either it's in investment properties, or stocks. Take the time to educate yourself. Even find a mentor. Those are great. They might share some time and some insights, some candid insights to avoid those mistakes they made, and they can share that with you so you don't bump your head in the middle of the way. And that way you develop your own risk tolerance, because I think you have to, risk tolerance only happens when something occurs, I find, with certain individuals. So you might have put, 10,000 in a stock and it dropped down to like 3,000. Then that's when you're like, oh, you start to panic, you start to react. But if you took the time to understand that there's volatility in stocks, then you would have been aware that potentially the money may go up or down. So I think what my dad and what Andrew was saying is that you have to take the time to self-educate yourself. And more importantly, I think find someone who's a master in that field as well. I think some of us shy away from that, but it gets big dividends when you take time and sit down. And most of the time it's free. It doesn't cost anything. You might just have to bring coffee or tea or something to eat, but you're gonna learn a lot from that interaction from that person, where you develop your own risk tolerance in time, and where you might have been in a scale on the 2, but after that conversation, you're now at 7 and 8.
Yeah, that's a lot of valid points. My mom always told me when I was a child growing up that a wise man learns from the mistakes of others, while a fool learns from his own. That comes back to mentorship. So if you find yourself a mentor, a real transparent, honest mentor, they will share with you their successes, but more importantly, their failures and their shortcomings. So it allows you not to make the same mistake. It allows you to better analyze the risk, because they've already done it. And whether it's investing in, real estate properties, or whether it's investing in the stock market or crypto, if you have a mentor who's, not necessarily who's older than you, but more experienced in the field that you are interested in being involved in, then I think it gives you more clarity into what you can and cannot do. But what is interesting is that many people today are risk averse when it comes to investing in wealth creating assets, but they aren't risk averse when it comes to with accumulating tremendous credit card debt. Like, I am more risk averse to the credit card debt than to the investing part of it. I mean, I remember that, like, I don't have large credit cards. They scare me because it's not my money. I don't want a $25,000 credit card. And I've called credit card companies and asked them very politely to reduce my credit limit back to where it was. I don't need to have a credit card that has more than $5,000 in the credit, right? Because that to me puts me in a position where instead of me going out and trying to generate earned or passive income, I am now comfortable dealing with a short-term crisis using somebody else's money. Now, if you're using the credit card to leverage your business, that's a different conversation. It's risky, but it's a different conversation. But I find it challenging that people are scared of, investing in the stock market or investing in real estate or investing in themselves, but they're not afraid in acquiring tremendous amounts. I mean, the average person is carrying probably $30,000 or more in credit card debt in North America, in the large cities. Black people, you know, more than three-quarters of them are walking with a large amount of credit card debt, right? But nobody is investing in tangible things that can pay dividends in the future. So I think it's a matter of rewiring our brain, how we function. You know, you've got, the expensive clothing, but you aren't invested in the companies manufacturing this clothing. And these companies are all making tremendous inroads and making great. Every year their incomes are going up. I was listening to every now and then these videos pop up on your timeline. And one famous rapper, I'm sure I sent it to you, Stefan. One famous rapper was saying that once your sneaker has a crease, you can't wear it anymore. No, I never heard such dumb stuff in my life, right? These folks have a huge audience, and you've got all these teenagers following you. So your Air Jordan's got a crease. So now it's no your sneakers have to be creaseless to define you, right? So we've got to be very careful what we consume, particularly our younger generation. And we got to be a lot more understanding of what risk really is and what risk is not. And while for many investing in the stock market or doing puts and calls might be risky, the real risk is the debt that you're carrying. Those credit cards that come to you in the mail every 3 days, $5,000, $10,000. That's your real challenge, not investing in real estate in the stock market.
I wanted to maybe add, it could be a question to both of you. You believe that the word debt, the concept of debt, is more of a North American social construct? Because, when my dad shares stories of Guyana, people have debt, but not the magnitude where it is in North America. And not even the magnitude in terms of dollar figure, more the understanding of it. I feel like my dad was sharing earlier, that I think for some of us, we get a little too comfortable with the credit card or line of credit debt, where it's a cushion. But like if you look at parts of the Caribbean, that's not very the mindset. Like they want to get rid of debt. The debt is a bad thing. Like they don't want to be in debt. But when I look at individuals' liabilities, it's a very, laissez-faire kind of attitude behind it. And for me, when they give me a response of how they develop that position, it's like, oh yeah, I just, went here back home a couple months and I racked it up, helping individuals. And okay, so we'll get to helping individuals, and you could help someone, but if it puts you in a hole, I don't think you should be helping anybody. That could be any your mom, your dad, your family member. And when that client told me that, I found that very interesting, because this person was racked up a lot of debt for helping individuals, their family, and it's case by case, of course. If the person's in a very tragic situation, then by all means help them. But if it puts you in a position where you're racking up this debt, where you have to, consider strongly saying no, not this time, because it could put you in a very debt cycle, where that cycle is kind of, it could be extensively long, and it increases very rapidly. As you know, the cost of living here in Canada, US, it could be quite high for certain individuals. So I think you have to have a strong sense of, you do want to help individuals, because our cultures, what we're talking about, we do help people back home, right? And we have responsibilities. But if it's putting you in a predicament where you're every so often you have all these debt, then you might have to start considering what's best for you.
Well, I got a short answer for that. I mean, you
There's
can't help
another
anybody.
question. There's another question there, right? You want to address the question
Oh.
first?
Yeah. There's a question in the chat here from one of our listeners. Do I think the mindset of working 2 to 3 jobs that Caribbean immigrants bring to North America is a helpful or hindrance? I think we touched on this earlier, where I shared my opinion on that. Where, I mean, a lot of times a job is exchanging time for money. And all income in North America is taxed. So by giving up your leisure time, or a time where you can develop in yourself, and working multiple jobs, I don't see it as a benefit to significant growth. Now, if you do it in the short term for a specific reason, like you're a student, you want to finish your MBA, and you want to get out to university without a student loan, then that makes sense. If you got a goal where you need to get X number of dollars to get to a destination, you need to save $15,000 to buy your podcast equipment for your studio, that makes sense. But where you were working 2 and 3 jobs to maintain basic living, I don't see that as a sensible way to trade time for money. I see it better investing your time in increasing your knowledge base and your skill set, and increasing your income. I think it was a very poor use of time. I said I've never had a part-time job in North America. I did it once for probably, I think, 3 nights. I had a factory job way back in the 90s. It was the worst experience I've ever had in my life. And I shifted my focus into trying to get myself accredited in certain disciplines that I can now get into rooms and spaces that I can actually earn more money. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what your opinion of that is, guys, but that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that last point that you said of increasing your skills. For the most part, when I see people working 2 to 3 jobs, it's because either they're in an industry where it's hard to level up to earn money. If you're working in retail, you can go as high as a manager or sales manager, and that's about it. But if you're in a field or an industry that you can level up your skills to earn more income in that same field and become proficient at it, I'll use myself as an example. I started off as just, your general advisor. But then when you started getting accreditations and getting letters behind your name, then you're able to speak to different individuals, command more income. So I think a better use of the time is leveling up in that industry or field that you're in. But if you can't, and you're going to have to find another second job or third job, then try to make it as passive or as on your time or energy, and not using as much energy as you can, as opposed to driving to another location or third location, either cleaning something else or another retail job. Those ones are just taxing, and it becomes a hindrance at that point, because then you become a slave to that income and that energy output.
Yeah, and there's a cost to doing it. I mean, as you said, if you work in a full-time job from 9 to 5, then you're going to leave that full-time job. You have to drive halfway across the city. If you're in Toronto, it's a traffic nightmare. It's costing you gas, maintenance in your car, wear and tear. To go to work somewhere for 3 hours or 4 hours, most likely it's going to be some other job in the service industry, probably a restaurant or a retail environment. There's no time left for you to actually, sit down and plan your next move. You're tired all the time, right? You're working probably 6 or 7 days a week. Like my first job was retail in Canada, right? And I watched I had a regular job as a store clerk with a pretty large office supply company. And the audience, we said 11 o'clock, we're going to stop. It's 10 minutes past 11. We're going to ask you for 5 more minutes of your time because I think we've had a very good conversation. We probably shortchanged ourselves by trying to do this in 45 minutes. So we're going to go to 11:15 if that's okay with you guys. But yes, back to what I was saying. My first job in Canada was retail. And I quickly realized after a few months that there was no money in this. I became a store manager very, very quickly. The only benefit I had was I had a 10 or 15% discount on everything the store sold. Now, how many pens and paper do I need that's going to make my life any different? You know what I mean? So the discount to me was useless. I didn't need anything from the store, right? So I started to go to a lot of evening courses at Humboldt College. So I never worked a second job. I never wanted to work late. I didn't want to work overtime, none of those things. As soon as my time was up, I was out the door. I went home to my family. You know what I mean? Because that was more important to me than I don't want to say it was a dead-end job. It actually served the purpose at the time I did it. And that's the other thing that we have to understand today, particularly for younger people. You have to map your future. So yes, you have all these financial elements that we mentioned before, the first 5 elements. We didn't get to all of them. But I think what is more important is mapping your future. Because that's going to determine how you create wealth. You know, you come to university or college, you have your first job as a bank, insurance company, hospital, tech company. But then where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years? And you have a very, very concrete plan to get yourself there. So while we have to budget for resources, you also have to budget for a life because the two things go hand in hand. And I don't think many people are doing that. So we just sort of going from one day to the next with no game plan. And then wherever we end up, you know. And you see it when you get to 55 and 60, right? You got 2 people who have earned the same income. One has retired at 60, and if you got a home back in the Caribbean, and one at 65 is still working because they didn't have a game plan. They had no game plan for it, right? And they both had the same opportunity, right? You know, I mean, I know life happens to a lot of folks. So life happens sometimes. It's also it happens to change your trajectory in life. But I mean, I think we live in a society and I live in a part of the world where there's tremendous opportunity if you understand the landscape and take risks that you analyze the risks, do some research, and speak to people, speak to the advisors. That's very, very important.
Well, that's the end of our time. You know, I just want to take this moment to thank everybody for staying longer than our intended time and giving us those 2 great questions. We hope to see you again next month, every second Wednesday. We're here to having a conversation about money and real life conversations. We haven't determined what our next topic will be, but we'll be definitely marketing that and will be coming out shortly. But I just want to say thank you. This has been a great call.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Have yourself a fantastic day. We got one final comment. Let's see who it is. It's one of our listeners says, thanks for sharing. Thank you very much for taking the time and spending with us. Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yourself a fantastic day and continued success.